Hello class, this is Mrs. Gallegos, and today's tutorial is going to be on naming ionic formulas. This information can be found in Chapter 8, Section 2. The tutorial will cover naming cations, naming anions, naming polyatomic ions, and then putting it all together. First of all, naming cations. Metal cations are named after their name in the periodic table. So if I look up Ca in the periodic table, I will see that it is called calcium. If I look up Li in the periodic table, I see that it's called lithium. And these will be the names that will be used in the name of a whole formula. Transition metals are different because some of them have more than one possible charge. And so we are going to use the name from the periodic table plus a Roman numeral that will show the charge. So for example, copper has either a +1 charge or a +2 charge. So the way that we can tell the difference between copper with a 1 charge and copper with a 2 charge is by using a Roman numeral in parentheses after the name. So copper plus will be called copper 1, and copper 2 plus will be called copper 2. Naming anions. Remember, the nonmetals are all anions or negative ions. They are going to use their name from the periodic table. However, we are going to replace the ending with IDE. So for example, Cl is chlorine. I'm going to take off the INE ending and replace it with IDE. And so now my anion, Cl minus, is called chloride. So if I see an IDE ending, that equals ion. O2 minus, O means oxygen. If I take off the ending and replace it with IDE, I will have oxide. So oxide means it's no longer an element, it's an ion. And we know that our nonmetals gain electrons, and so this is a negative ion. Once again, we have nitrogen ions. And so I'm going to take off the O-gen ending of nitrogen and replace it with IDE. And so now it's going to be called nitride. So whenever I see an IDE ending, it means I am an ion and I am an element. And we know what kind of element we are. We are nonmetals. Polyatomic ions, this is easy. The polyatomic ions simply keep their names when they're in the formula. So if I have SO4 in my formula, that will be called sulfate. If I have PO4 in my formula, it will be called phosphate. And remember, we have our 6 polyatomic ions that we must memorize. Now putting all together. So our first example is calcium chloride, is CaCl2. So I know that my cation, I simply take its name from the periodic table, so it will be called calcium. Then for my anion, I take its name from the periodic table and I replace the ending with IDE. So this substance will be called calcium chloride. Now what's the name for this substance? LiNO3. So my cation, I look it up in the periodic table and discover it is lithium. My anion is a polyatomic ion, NO3, so I'm going to just use its name, which is nitrate. And so my substance is called lithium nitrate. More practice. What is the name for CuCl2? Well, this time I have copper, and we know that copper is a transition metal. And transition metals can have more than one charge. So I need to uncross my formula to find the charge. So this 2 originally was up here as a 2 plus. So when I uncross my formula, I remember that copper must have been 2 plus. So I'm going to use a Roman numeral in parentheses to show that this is copper 2 plus. So its name is copper, parentheses, 2 close parentheses. My anion, as I know, is chlorine in the periodic table. Here's my anion. And I'm going to get rid of the ending and replace it with IDE. So putting this together, my substance CuCl2 is going to be called copper 2 chloride. So I only use these Roman numerals when I'm going to have a transition metal. Let's practice again. What is the name for FeNO3 So I have my cation and I have my anion. So I see once again my cation is a transition metal. So I uncross. So this 3 was up here a 3 plus. So this iron must be iron 3. So I use Roman numerals in parentheses, and so my cation's name is iron 3. My anion is a polyatomic ion whose name is nitrate. And so my substance, FeNO3 is called iron 3 nitrate. I hope this tutorial was useful.